All right, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on our May 2026 release of FinDock. I'm really happy that you've joined because we've got some very exciting stuff to show you. My name is Klaas Kooistra, Product Manager at FinDock, and with me is Laurens Wapenaar, Senior Project Manager at FinDock, and we are going to share with you what's in the upcoming release. Before we start, this session will be recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel, so you can view it afterwards or share it with your peers who were unable to join. Everything that we are going to show you that's part of the release is already available in your sandbox environments and will be published to production on Sunday night, May the 17th. If you want to be up to date on the status of the release, you can see status.findoc.com and subscribe for maintenance details and live updates when the release happens. Today, we're going to talk about four main topics. We're first going to talk about our betas and pilots. After that, I've got some exciting updates to share with you on what we've been doing on refunds. And after that, I will share with you some small wins that make a big difference across the board, which are minor and major enhancements. And then after that, I'll hand it over to Laurens to talk about something that's coming in the future on Experience Cloud. But start with our betas and pilots that we have running. With this release, we are moving refunds to beta, but we are very much still looking for feedback. So if you are willing to test with us, do let us know. And we, as you might have seen in the release notes, we are moving Bulk API v2, our enhanced large data volume processing, to GA with a phased rollout. We still have two items in pilots around PAYA and the ability to collect open amount. And you can see the stats of all the details. You can see that over here. But let's start with refunds. So over the last two releases, we've been on a journey to add refunds to FinDock, to initiate refunds for two major reasons. One is to improve the customer service for service agents and your end customers, so they don't have to switch between systems and don't know the status of a refund. And secondly, we want to improve the payment insights from Salesforce. So you have everything in one place here. You can track not only when the refund has been completed, but also when it's in flight, and make that better. Now, last release, we've launched that in pilot, and in this release, I'm very excited to announce two major enhancements to our refunds capability. One is that we have added support for both Stripe and Authorize.net to initiate refunds from Salesforce using FinDock. These are processes that are used by a lot of existing and new customers, so we're very excited to add support for these. And they're available starting with the Sandbox production release. Additionally, we've also shipped a very nice out-of-the-box LWC component that you can deploy to the installment opportunity or gift transaction to easily refund a payment with smart pre-suggested refund amounts. It's context-aware and validates if there are prior refunds. It shows you the reasons that you can select for a refund, and we do in the backend confirmation and validation on if a refund is even possible on the payment that you're trying to execute right now. And that completes a whole suite of integration patterns that you can choose that fits your use case for refunds. So you can choose which was already available to develop your own custom Lightning Web component and implement a refund Apex action. You can call refunds from Flow to embed it into a deeper system if you don't need the complexity of the LWC component. And then thirdly, with this release, we have the native component that you can use for installment opportunity and gift transactions. On our docs, we have a whole document, including code examples on all three integration patterns on how you can use them and when they suit your use case best. And you can find that on our docs under integrating refunds. If you have any questions, do let us know. Also, if you want to participate and provide us with beta or feedback, we're also very eager to work with you. Now, to round off this section on refunds, I'd like to briefly show you refunds with Stripe and the new native component and how that works in action. So I'm switching to my demo environment. And what I have here is I have an installment where there has already been a refund executed for $25 US in this case. But the customer called and they want a full refund because they didn't like the product. So what I did was I added a lightning action to this page under this button, which you can rename yourself and configure how you would like it. And if you click it, you will be taken into the refund component that I just showed you. It shows you all the payments that are eligible for a refund. So if there are multiple payments, you can select one. It shows you the date, all the details you need to make the decision on what you want to refund. And it allows you to, it also shows you that already, as I said, €25 in this case was already refunded. Now, let's say I want to process an additional 75 euro refund. And in this case, it's because the membership is cancelled. Now, these reasons are customizable and taken from the pick list that we have on the refund object. So you can deactivate reasons you don't need for reporting purpose or create your own ones. And the component will automatically take those into account when you add one or remove one. What I will now do is I'll click refund. I get a nice confirmation. It's okay. And what it will now do is it will go directly to Stripe. It will check and validate if it's indeed eligible for a refund, if everything is in order. And then after a few seconds, it will confirm that the refund is completed. Because this is a sandbox that's sometimes a bit slower. But on production, this should be very quick. And there you have it. So in this case, you already see the refund reference. And if I now refresh the page, you should see a second refund attached to this installment of the €75. And if I click on it, it's currently still in pending processing because we're waiting confirmation from Stripe before it's actually executed. But once that's happened, it will be updated to completed, and the entire installment will be automatically updated to fully refunded. As I said, this also works on through our source connectors on gift transaction and on the MPSP opportunity, where when you work with fundraising, we also create a gift refund object in the background. We're very excited to have this. And if you have any questions or are looking for, want to provide feedback, as I said, don't hesitate to reach out. And that's our demo for refunds. Now, on to a whole other list of topics that we've worked on, which are the small wins that we do every release. And I want to start with a highlight on the work that we've been doing in the foundations of how we do reconciliation across FinDock. And we've made two major improvements on this topic. One is that in guided matching, we've always ran guided matching in parallel for speed and performance. So we've seen it has great benefits. But at the same time, in some scenarios, especially when there are fuzzy matching criteria or complicated matching criteria, it's better to process those transactions in serial to also respect the order that the transactions or the bank statements are imported into. And that's why we've introduced a setting on the guided matching setup for transactions that allows you to choose if you want to process your transactions within a transaction set serially in chunks of 200 or less, or if you want to process them in parallel. Now, for new installs, we've seen that the performance is quite good on serial. So the new default is serial, but you can always change it to parallel if you need a faster performance or don't have these the more complex matching scenarios. Now, a second Much requested feature is that we've had for a very long time in the payment request generator was the ability to bring your own base or bring your own reference, as we say, where you provide us with a string that we then turn into a compliant reference format that we support. And we've added and expanded this capability now to work out of the box on installment. A concrete example, if you create an installment now with, let's say you want to use an invoice number to create the payment reference, you set the invoice number as I have here, which is invoice 5578789 on a new introduced field on the installment. And in this case, I set the payment method to bank transfer because I need that kind of reference. Then FinDock automatically turns that reference into a valid RF creditor reference with the RF, the checksum, and everything that you need to be compliant. So this is a really, really easy way to control and customize the reference that we create. If you don't need this, you can still rely on our existing creditor references or payment reference that we create. But this is an extended capability that works across all payment methods that have a bring your own reference kind of reference type in the payment request generator, like ESR and many more. There are a lot more small wins where I want to refer you to our release notes to read all the details. I want to highlight a few. One is that we've expanded our payment profile uniqueness check in scenarios where credit cards are in play in some cases, to add the billing address to the equation, adding a new field, billing address fingerprint. We've also fixed a bug in the fundraising that in some cases led to problems around aggregation of Box Direct Debit installments, and many more items. And then finally, for Stripe, we've also added Satispay recurring payments as a payment method with this release, expanding on the one-time payment that we already had with the last release, completing the scope of Satispay across the different features that Stripe has supported. If you want to read more, you can read them on our docs. The release notes are already published and you have them available. And it's also great to highlight that we've added a whole new section on how you can troubleshoot if you run into issues, with guidance, information sources, and more on different topics and what you should take into consideration, which is really helpful for if you need help in finding what's going on and if you run into something unexpected. And with that, I would like to hand over the screen and also the mic to Laurens, who's going to tell you a lot more about Experience Cloud.
Thanks, Klaas. Before we dive in, I think there's two questions about the refunds that maybe we can address first.
Yes, sure. One is from, if you can read them, Laurens, then I can answer them.
Yeah. So first question is, will refunds be available for Go Cardless anytime soon? And the second question is about Swiss recurring, and then the same question.
Okay, so I think the generic answer is if you're interested in having the need for refunds in a processor that you use that's not supported, I highly recommend you to reach out to support so we can take that into consideration. Because going forward, we will be working based on feedback and demand from customers to determine which extra processors we're going to be adding. But I've noted down Go Cardless and Swish now as interest, and making sure that we put that on the list of feedback across many different processes that we've had already watched interest in.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yes, I would like you to take through a new thing we're working on, a new pilot that we're starting relating to Experience Cloud. I'll also try to show you some things, demoing what we currently have and what's in the pilot that we are starting. But before I do that, I do think it's good to give a little bit of context. So we've always had two options for to build online payment front ends, so websites, checkouts, and the like. And we've always said, look, there's two types of ways to look at it. Which option you choose depends on your research budget, but also what your complexity of requirements is, how much control over the UX and the UI you want to have. And we've always said FinDock giving pages and pay links are so pages comes with the product, and pay links has a small add-on price. Are out of the box solutions, but not very flexible. So there is some configuration you can do, but you can't extend them fully using Salesforce. On the opposite end, there is obviously our payment API, and if you use that, you can build the exact same thing. But obviously, your research budget needs to be higher, but you do get full control over how it behaves, what it does, and what things look like. More and more, we've seen in the past years that we get customers with needs and means somewhere in between these out-of-the-box front ends and our API. And the reason for this is that we've been expanding across many use cases, from fundraising to membership to association, social housing, on the nonprofit end, but also financial services like insurance, rent collection, and many others outside of the nonprofit sector, and also many more countries. And each of these segments, so use cases and countries, has different requirements. What we want to do is to fill this gap that we see here, leveraging Salesforce Experience Cloud and Flow, taking the best of both worlds. So both try to reduce the resource budget required to serve these online payment use cases, but also increasing the requirement complexity that you can solve without building your own. Obviously, building your own will always be an option because we are API first, and whatever we build is built on top of our own API. So you always have the option to go further than we do. However, we do also hope that the building your own segment becomes easier with what we're doing here. So what's in this solution? We see three elements that we're going to use that you can mix and match to fit your specific needs and capabilities. We start off with Experience Cloud Sites. That's a website builder, Flow as a form builder, and FinDock will build Lightning Web Components on top of the payment API, and combining these into an end-to-end online payment solution that's deeply integrated and runs on top of your Salesforce. So what are these elements? So let's start with Experience Cloud and why we think it's a good part of this solution. So Salesforce has invested a lot in Experience Cloud in the last years. It's come a long way from its initial communities product, where now this is a fully fledged drag and drop, no code website builder with performant pages, responsive pages, so they work great on mobile and tablet. And you can also configure that. They're flexible, and you can fully introduce your look and feel with all the theme options. They also allow for templates and out-of-the-box components to get started quickly. Now, the second great part of this is that Salesforce has made their CMS free. So Salesforce CMS is included in every Salesforce license and works great and is deeply integrated with the sites. And it's also deeply integrated with basically every other Salesforce tool. So whether you use things like Marketing Cloud, Data 360, Agentforce, or Agentforce for Nonprofit, or even MPSP, this is all deeply integrated, and data can be accessed, data can be updated, or can be used to infer certain personalization. Now, it's also fully localizable and accessible, and that's something that's especially important to our customers. So pages you need to be able to translate them fully, set the right local currency, depending on even on where the donor or the payer or member comes from. Same for local payment methods, and in recent years, accessibility and the WCAG standard has become incredibly important, and Experience Cloud provides all of this out of the box. It also provides several types of solutions. So it has both free public sites and login portal experiences for different types of audiences and customers, or the same customer but with a different need. And because it's Salesforce, you get fine-grained access control, obviously Salesforce security, and all the compliance that you need if you're in a specific industry. Obviously, this is just a brief list, but these are the things that I'd like to call out. There are much more features to Experience Cloud. Then Flow as a form builder. Again, Salesforce has invested a lot here. So they invested in basically in every angle of Flow, basically in turning it into an extremely flexible form building solution where you can design single step forms, multi-screen journeys with conditional logic, different branches based on data that you get or is inputted, data validation to prevent errors downstream, and dynamic content. And that's all built in and comes out of the box. It also allows you to do a lot without code, but if you still need it, integrate code. So there's basically no limit to what you can do there, as long as you have the appetite. And there's great support of components that you can build custom, but also components on the app exchange. So there's ISVs dedicated to building nicer, more beautiful, more functional components that Salesforce doesn't offer out of the box. Again, here, the native CRM integration is important with Marketing Cloud, Data 360, and Agentforce. So basically, all the AI features of Salesforce can be used here. The new Marketing Cloud is built on top of Flow in a large way. At least the journeys are. So basically, you can also leverage everything outside of Flow and Experience Cloud into these solutions. Now, one very important thing for our solution is that the look and feel of the form is something Salesforce has invested in, and it's taken from your Experience Cloud team. So that keeps, so instead of having a very dry form that you would often see inside of Salesforce, you can make it look any way you want based on the Experience Cloud team that you set. And then the final and maybe most important piece is that FinDock will build Lightning Web Components that you can use in Flow or even directly in Experience Cloud or in your own components to abstract away the parts of the solution that need coding the most. So we'll introduce a couple components, mostly around payment method selection, where there's different parameters involved, validation of those parameters, determining on a payment method and a processor and a region that we just want to provide out of the box, so you don't have to do it. Same thing with initiating the payment with our API and handling the response and redirecting the user yes or no, or serving up certain errors. That's something we want to build out of the box, so you can focus on the things that are not generic payment functionality. All of these will come with configuration editors, so you can simply go in and enable a payment method like you are used from us for pages and pay links. So obviously there's three elements to this solution, and to make sure that these work nicely together and you don't have to put them together yourself, although obviously you can if you want to be really flexible. Both Flow and Experience Cloud can work with templates, and the template is basically a pre-created configuration that you can still completely edit any way you like. So it's extremely flexible, but that already includes an Experience Cloud template with a Flow and a Flow template, And in the first period, we will be serving these up in FinDock Labs, so they're accessible to everybody. So you can see this a bit about how we handle the 3 potential templates for giving pages, but then being able to completely change this up, both the look and feel and the structure of the page and the content, but also the form on top of that. So rather than talk more about this, I'd also like to show you this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another tab. So what you see here is an early version of what we've built, and this is also the version that we're taking into pilot and hope in the coming release, based on your feedback, take deeper into the product. And what you see here is an Experience Cloud website, and I'll show you what it looks on the back end as well, with a form that is a flow. And there are some Lightning Web components in here that I'll call out, but many of the things you'll see are out of the box Salesforce flow, even though they may not look like that. So one of our developers is a big fan of gibbons. Gibbons are a sort of ape, I've been told. And here we have a FinDock for gibbons page with some content, some assets in the footer, some additional information, with some links to things like privacy policies and more detailed contact information. But obviously, most of the magic is in the donation form. Now, I'm using a donation form here because those are often the most complex use cases, but you could easily turn this into a checkout by simply replacing the amount and frequency selector here with either a fixed amount or a different kind of membership selection or things like that. So we'll give once, and we'll give $25. And you see we have a little impact narrative here, that's standard flow. And on the second page, you'll see we can enter our contact details. If we don't, we will get an error. Again, these 3 fields are purely flow fields, but then styled with the Experience Cloud team. And if we enter our details here, they are out of the box validated partially by Salesforce when it comes to email, but you could add additional validations if you want to. So when we go next, we get our payment method selection. And so this piece is definitely something that we have built because it's a little more complex, it requires a lot of logic, and we just want to be able to give you this out of the box. And in this case, we're going to do a SEPA direct debit payment. But we could also, for instance, do a credit card payment where it says we will be directed to checkout. But in this case, we'll choose SEPA direct debit and then pay here. Oh, I have a little bug here, unfortunately. That we sometimes get. So let's do credit card instead. And then if everything goes well, we're directed to a donation page. Now, as you can see, pilot feature, so some things aren't loaded always. But again, this is purely flow, so you can fully configure it. Now, what does it look in the backend? So everything you see is part of an Experience Cloud site. So we are now going to look at these features from Salesforce. And I need to be shared, unfortunately. All right. So this is basically the digital experiences home of Salesforce. They have a lot of help here to get you started, but usually there's 2 pieces to it: the CMS workspace, where you can store all your content that can be loaded in the pages, and a list of your sites. Now, I have just one here, but you can have many sites connected to the same CMS workspace, for instance. So you can make very tailored websites for different campaigns, different regions, different entities of your organization, and manage them all in one place. Part of this is obviously building the site. So what you see here is the Experience Cloud builder for my website. And as you can see, these are all standard elements that we use from Salesforce. We've got little text blocks here where we can change the text. We've got an image here that's loaded from the CMS of Salesforce and hosted there. And if we would want to, we could add and remove sections to the page. What Salesforce has also done is allow you to add a pretty long list of out-of-the-box things, going from horizontal lines and simple UI things like an image, but also to add buttons and more complicated HTML editors or language selectors out of the box. And as you can see down below here, it goes all the way up to lists of records in Salesforce, for instance, if you have a portal and you want to serve some content there. Now at the bottom, there's custom components where you can get things from the App Exchange. But for now, we're going to be looking at more of the branding and styling options. And as you can see here, you can basically configure everything about this page by simply clicking through it, like you would expect from a website builder, all the way up to setting exactly what your headings look like, how big your paragraph fonts are, what the font weight is, and this is all taken over by the flow form. Rather than diving too deep on this time, so I'd like to show you the second piece. So as you can see here, in this part of the website, we've put our flow. Unfortunately, they don't render here completely, so you'll have to go to the flow builder to see what's going on. So that's what we'll do. So this is the flow builder for the screen I've shown. And as you can see here, we have a couple screen elements. We have split our form in an amount and frequency screen, a detail screen, or a page screen. You can also just make one screen that holds all the elements of this. Now, and as you can see, the detail screen with the personal details, it's all standard flow fields. So it's the components on the left-hand side that you can add. So for instance, if we wanted to add a phone field, we would just take it from here and it will be rendered here. And there will already be some standard validation in here that Salesforce adds, but we can do much more. So let's say we add an address to this as well. You get the address compound field from Salesforce with the street, the zip code, the city, and stuff like that. Also holds the pick list fields if you've enabled that. And you can use resources to pre-fill data or validate it differently. Now, one important piece for Flow that we didn't have in Pages was component visibility. So one of the feature requests we got a lot is to make it possible to dynamically determine whether you would show or hide a field. For instance, in some countries, when a donation or a payment goes above a certain amount, for instance, 100 euros, you need to start asking for addresses. So you can send them a receipt. But obviously, forcing people to enter an address is quite a bit of friction. So for those amounts where you don't need this, you don't want to add this. Now, Flow out of the box allows you to set conditions for visibility with an incredible amount of detail. Even in our case, it would just be amount higher than 100, but you can go a long way with this. And it simply goes out of the box. So we could, for instance, say, let's take the amount from the selected amount and then say greater than 100 and then be done. And that's it. That's how it works. Same thing for validation of input. There's all kinds of flexibility around this. So you can get formulas that calculate certain things, again, based on input and output of other places. But this just goes to show how flexible of a form builder Salesforce has become here. And the personal details page is also often where we see the most feature requests for very specific things to add. Things like, so addresses, very specific checkbox, consent, asking for phone and email and newsletters and things like that. That all now comes out of the box with Salesforce. Same thing goes for things on the amount and frequency screen. So in this case, the amount and frequency was a Lightning Web component that we created because most donation pages are structured in exactly the same way, which is hard to do with Flow. But if you don't have that complexity, or you're in an industry where payment pages are not that standardized, you could simply choose to replace that Lightning Web component by deleting it, by pressing this button, and then adding, for instance, a currency. So that's an input field, or simply a display text with an amount in it. And then style that to make it bigger so that people, let's make this bigger so that people don't miss it. Now, what you can do, for instance, I just said that €10 amount here, but again, here you can use flow variables. So you could, for instance, query an installment to get the amount, or query an invoice to get the amount. Flow, everywhere they allow text, they also allow resources and variables to be taken from somewhere else in the flow. Then finally, the components that we ship. So that's mostly around payment method selection and payment initiation. We have created configuration editors. So with the button here, where you can enable and disable things. This is a dummy PSP, so it's not the real one, for one-time and recurring. Here we've taken mostly what we've done with giving pages, but improved based on lessons that we learned there, both in the UI and the UX, and in how we handle certain parameters and certain UI things to improve upon the pattern that we have there. Now, all of this is, like I said, mix and match. So you could also just decide, if you have only one payment method that needs to be paid, you can just simply map flow variables there instead of using our component, and to make it as flexible as possible. Now we're trying to get as close to standard flow as possible here. So when it comes to the payer, so the contact that we pass based on the personal details, we're using flow object variables that you select, similar as how you would build up a record in Flow when you store something directly in Salesforce, using all the standard components of Salesforce to do assignments, so assigning the first name from the screen to the detail screen. Depending on how you build up your flow, you could even do that directly. But the key thing to remember is we stick as close to standard flow as possible and try to make it as easy for your admin or whoever works on these kinds of flows to understand what is happening and use the tools that they are already familiar with and working with every day. So where we can, use out-of-the-box Experience Cloud, out-of-the-box Flow, so you don't have to learn a new tool to do this from Salesforce. Now, obviously, this provides a lot of flexibility to do things. Also, when it comes to error handling, so when you want to send somebody to a success page or an error page, maybe you want to add a screen in between. You can simply do that by adding a screen in a flow. Maybe you want to calculate something in between. You can use standard flow formulas and resources, but also Apex actions if you want to go a bit beyond no code. But basically, all the flexibility that a flow offers is possible here. Now we'll be talking a lot more about these kinds of things in the coming releases. So I don't want to dive into all the features that this offers. But we do hope that this gives everybody a much more flexible and still much more out-of-the-box experience at the same time than we are currently offering. So back to our slides. To summarize the benefits of this new solution, with a little safe harbor applies to most of the things I'm saying here, is that we believe you can give your customers a payment experience that they'll love, but also give your operations teams more control over these kinds of things in Salesforce instead of using a tool that is maybe less flexible or lives outside of Salesforce and isn't as well integrated. And we believe you can have it all. We believe you can have personalized experiences from the first click to your website to all the way up until payment processing, payment reconciliation, all inside of Salesforce. Use your brand by styling everything from Experience Cloud sites, and use low-code tooling and no-code tooling to go beyond the initial simple experience, using Salesforce clouds like Agentforce Nonprofit, but also Revenue Cloud, Data 360, Agentforce. Basically anything that Salesforce uses can be integrated here, and is often already integrated by Salesforce out of the box. For instance, when it comes to Data Cloud and Experience Cloud, you can store the events there next to maybe your Google Analytics, and Flow allows you to query data from Data 360. Obviously, there's much more than we like to build. So by building this, we believe we give customers a way to create much better experiences and handle the operations better. But we also believe we are creating something here that partners can use to go even beyond what we are doing. So there are many things across many industries and use cases. Like I showed you earlier, for customers that use FinDock, where there can be done more now that we use a platform that can be configured by others, unlike, for instance, Pages, where partially it was fixed to what we offer you. So what can you think about? So we'd love to work with partners on things they're already building on top of the payment API, but it should be made easier now on elements or components or widgets, whatever you want to call them. And things you can think of is, so I listed a couple fundraising specific use cases like data components. You can think about the goal meter or stat counter or donor map, a list of top supporters, the social integrations outside of nonprofit, specific checkouts for e-commerce and things like that. We believe there's an endless list of things that can be built on top of it to further improve the experience that no other platform can offer you. And even beyond that, full websites, by that we mean event websites, peer-to-peer auctions, shops even, using out-of-the-box Salesforce or beyond that, and providing more templates, and because you can structure a page in an endless number of ways with an endless number of features that can be shared across the community. For this, we are leveraging FinDock Labs internally, but we also welcome and celebrate contributions from the community to further increase the strength of the platform. We need your help. So we've built something we think is great, but we also believe strongly that with feedback from customers and partners, we can build something much, much better. So please sign up to our pilot program. I will put a link in the public chat to this. It's a simple Google form where we ask you for some information. And unfortunately, that's not going through. So please check it out. Okay, yeah. But you can also just email me directly at laus@findock.com or email our friends at CSG at support@findock.com, and they'll know where to find us. That's it for today. Much more to come in the near future. So keep track of our socials and our website, but also the next release webinars, because we will be talking about this a lot. That's it. Thank you. That's it for today. And we will stick around for questions. But if you have somebody else to be, this is your moment to go.